The sun hung like a molten orb in the sky, casting waves of heat over the endless stretch of golden dunes. Sergeant Daniel Hayes wiped the sweat from his brow as he adjusted the straps of his heavy backpack. His unit had been stationed at an outpost in the Middle Eastern desert for months, carrying out reconnaissance missions in the scorching terrain. The days were long and brutal, and the nights brought a bone-chilling cold that seeped through even the thickest of military gear. But amidst the hardships of war and survival, Daniel found solace in something unexpected, an unusual friendship with a creature he never thought he'd grow attached to. It was just after dawn when Daniel first spotted the camel. He had gone out alone to check on supply lines when he noticed a lone silhouette in the distance. At first, he thought it was a mirage, a trick played by the relentless heat. But as he moved closer, the figure took shape. A frail, sand-colored camel standing atop a dune, gazing at him with weary eyes. The animal was clearly abandoned. Its ribs jutted out from its skin, and patches of its fur were missing, revealing raw wounds. A broken rope dangled from its neck, evidence that it had once been tied down, perhaps by traders or nomads who had left it behind. Daniel hesitated. He had been trained to be wary in the desert. Wild animals, even seemingly harmless ones, could be dangerous. But something about the camel's sad, pleading eyes struck a chord deep within him. "Hey there, big guy," Daniel murmured, taking slow steps forward. The camel didn't flinch or retreat. Instead, it let out a low, throaty groan, almost as if it were calling out for help. Sighing, Daniel reached into his canteen and poured some water into his cupped hands. The camel hesitated for a moment before stepping closer, its long eyelashes flickering against the sunlight. It dipped its head and slurped up the water desperately, droplets splashing onto the sand. Daniel chuckled. "You're thirsty, huh? Guess I'd be too if I were stuck out here." That day, Daniel made a decision. He wasn't going to leave the camel behind. Bringing the camel back to the outpost was no easy feat. The stubborn animal refused to move at first, groaning and sitting down in protest. But after some coaxing and an entire bottle of water, Daniel managed to guide it back. The other soldiers laughed when they saw him return with the lanky, disheveled creature. "Are we keeping pets now, Sergeant?" one of them joked. Daniel ignored the teasing. He found an empty spot near the tents and tied the camel's rope to a sturdy post. He fed it scraps of dried fruit and leftover military rations, watching as the animal devoured every bite. Over time, the camel grew stronger. Its fur began to regain its healthy sheen, and the wounds on its body healed. Daniel named him Sandy, partly because of his color, partly because of the desert that had nearly swallowed him whole. Sandy quickly became a fixture at the outpost. He would roam freely during the day, sometimes trotting after Daniel as he went about his duties. At night, he would settle near the campfires, his large frame providing warmth against the cold desert wind. Despite his gruff nature, Daniel found himself talking to Sandy more often than he'd like to admit. The camel would listen, chewing lazily while Daniel vented about the hardships of war, the friends he had lost, and the home he missed so much. "You probably don't understand a word I'm saying," Daniel mused one evening, scratching behind Sandy's ears. "But it's nice to have someone to talk to." Sandy snorted and nudged Daniel's shoulder with his large head, nearly knocking him over. Daniel laughed. All right, I'll take that as a yes." Months passed, and Daniel and Sandy's bond only grew stronger. But the desert was unpredictable, and one fateful day, their friendship was put to the ultimate test. Daniel's unit had been sent on a routine patrol when an unexpected sandstorm swept through the dunes. Visibility dropped to near zero, and the howling winds drowned out their radio communications. In the chaos, Daniel got separated from his team. Disoriented and struggling against the storm, he wandered for what felt like hours. His throat burned from the dry air, and exhaustion threatened to pull him under. Just as he was about to collapse, a familiar sound cut through the storm, Sandy's deep, guttural groan. Daniel squinted through the haze and saw a blurry figure approaching. It was Sandy, his tall frame pushing against the wind, his strong legs unbothered by the shifting sands. Relief flooded through Daniel. He mustered the last of his strength and reached for the rope still tied around Sandy's neck. "Take me home, buddy," he whispered. Guided by some unexplainable instinct, Sandy led Daniel through the storm. He walked with purpose, unwavering, as if he knew exactly where the outpost was. Hours later, when the storm finally subsided, Daniel found himself back in familiar territory. His unit rushed toward him, relief evident on their faces. "You're alive!" one of them exclaimed. "How did you find your way back?" Daniel patted Sandy's neck, his voice thick with gratitude. "I didn't. He found me." Not long after the storm, Daniel's deployment came to an end. It was time to return home. Saying goodbye to Sandy was harder than he expected. The camel had become more than just an animal. He was family. "You take care of yourself, all right?" Daniel murmured, pressing his forehead against Sandy's. "No more getting lost in the desert." Sandy huffed, his large brown eyes staring into Daniel's as if he understood every word. Daniel arranged for a local wildlife sanctuary to take Sandy in. It wasn't easy leaving him behind, but he knew it was the best thing for his friend. As he boarded the military transport, he glanced back one last time. Sandy stood at the edge of the outpost, watching him go, his tail flicking against the warm desert wind. Years later, Daniel returned to the desert, this time as a traveler instead of a soldier. And there, at the sanctuary, standing tall and proud, was Sandy. The moment their eyes met, Sandy let out a familiar groan and trotted toward him. Daniel laughed, tears stinging his eyes. "I missed you too, buddy." Some friendships, no matter how unlikely, are meant to last forever.